Welcome to this new edition of A View from the Peanut Gallery with Don and Steve. We're really lucky because we've got our colleague with us today, Dr. Judy Hale, and we brought in a ringer. We have been reading Judy's books, going to her conference presentations, in appreciating her impact on the field for years now. And we're lucky that she is willing to share some of her expertise with us, in particular, the useful questions that she asks when she starts a project and is conducting an environmental scan. Judy?
Well, thanks, Steve. It's really a pleasure being here, and I'm looking forward to sharing my thoughts or past experience, and hopefully your students will find them of value. Oh, yeah, these first four questions are questions that either ask explicitly or I get the answers eventually. And that doesn't always show up as an interrogation. And by the way, I start the questioning on the first encounter. I don't wait until the contract is signed, because sometimes in that pre-sale business, I already found out I don't want to work with them or they're really crazy. So the point is, when they call me on the phone or send me an email and I have that first exchange, I almost always start with, so what's the problem you're trying to solve? Okay, and when you do it, what miracle is going to happen? How will you know? Who will better? Well, I mean, what's going to be the signs, right? And the answer to those questions tell me whether or not they've really given it any deep thought. Am I just something, call Judy and check the list, or do they really have a real problem that they want to solve, right? And if they don't have any idea about what will be different about the world when we start, then I know I must do that before I go ahead, or something like that. Now, in terms of who's affected, I want to know how pervasive it is. And I've had an executive tell me, I said, how will you know what I'm doing for you is effective? He says, oh, I'll have fewer hate emails. Okay. Now, politically, you don't ask how many you get now. I mean, that's not appropriate. But as you go through it, you can say, well, is the number going down? You know, you can see things like that. But I really want to know, is this an individual pain? Is this a pain for your customers? Are your suppliers hurting? Do you have a team within the group? I really want to know how pervasive it is. And this last question about who benefits. When things are bad, somebody benefits. We wouldn't be in the mess we are in if no one benefited. Always understand that. So this is also my looking at where's the money going. Who benefits? Invariably, somebody, somewhere is benefiting. I was in a client where one of the senior executives committed suicide at the office, and they didn't even mention that. You know, all I got, but I did find out that their absentee rate was awful. And this is in production, that's ghastly. I found out that their health claims were off the charts. And who benefited? Well, you know what? They had an executive who created chaos because he was embezzling funds. So there's always somebody benefiting like that. But this is kind of where my frame of reference starts. Okay.
Can I, two things that I wanted to add, because I love these questions, Judy. The third one, one of the things I've said to this class before, and I like to reiterate, is when you care more about the problem than your sponsor does, you know that you're in trouble. And that does happen. So sometimes they would like you to solve it, but they're not really invested in that. And that's generally going to be a warning sign that you're in trouble. And I just a call out for question 4, because there are people invested in the status quo, and the very act of asking questions is going to disturb somebody. And so you need to be polite, you need to be diplomatic, you need to be professional, but you also need to recognize that you're probably going to annoy somebody because somebody's invested in the status quo.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And again, another shout out for number 4. in our consulting work with DLS Group and Deborah Stone, one of the tricks I learned from her was to make sure that we include those people with a vested interest in the status quo as part of the
Yes.
project team, simply so that they have a say in what's going on, but also so that what they're doing is visible.
Well, building on that, I do the same thing, but building on that, if the people invested in the status quo are there because it's what's worked in the past, they invested in it and they have energy, that's different than the ones that want the status quo because they're corrupt. If they're with the first group, if they feel heard, genuinely feel heard,
Yes.
they were more apt to let go and invite new possibilities. If, however, they're very, very resistant and building on, I almost always run into corruption. So those are two signals for me. But the key is feeling heard. And if you don't invite them to participate, they have no opportunity to feel heard. If you're just doing a perfunctory pass-through interview kind of thing, or that's not genuine, that's not authentic.
Mm-hmm. And so these are basic beginning questions, or when you first start orienting. Do you want to move on to the questions that you ask after these?
Sure. This is a couple things. This can happen in the very initial stage before you have a commitment, or it can happen after, something like that. But this tells me two things. How aware is the client of what's going on? For example, what's going on in the marketplace? And they go, right, well, if they're not sensitive to what their competitors are doing, and by the way, they can even be internal competitors. So if they're not aware, but right now this first question here is about the external marketplace. So I want to know what's going on. I mean, are your suppliers, do you have a supply chain issue? Do you have financing issue? Are there regulatory issues? Are competition issues? Is your customer base changing? Something like that. So I want to know those. But I'm two things. Not only want to know the answers, I want to know the degree to which the client is aware of that information. Similar to workplace, do they have a lot of churn? Have they got new technology coming in? Did they do a reorg? By the way, according to one of my clients who does quite a bit of work, 90% of the Fortune 100 reorganize every year. Now think about the chaos created by reorganizing. Okay, so are you going to do another reorg, you know, or something like that? And when we talk about the capability, these are people, the workers doing this work. Is there an issue? Have there been so much change in the work or the workplace that their skills are out of tune? In other words, has there been a disruption? Or is it an aging issue? Again, a little side story. I had terrible error rates in this manufacturing process. So I walked the line, and there was one place where there was this, think of a shoebox full of thin wires, and some were orange, and some were red, and some were green, and some were blue, and some were gray, and all these colors. And I said, do you ever test for color blindness? And they went, I said, well, let's try it this way. Do the colors matter? Oh, but time. If you put the wrong colors together. Well, then, did you ever check color blindness? No. Okay. The other thing is that they had to weave these wires like fine embroidery. And I didn't see a single magnifying glass. And by the way, every worker was over 50. Okay. I don't know about you, but they better be wearing readers of a large scale, or you better have magnifying glasses. So I said, so what are the visual? So what I'm saying here, sometimes the capacity or capability of people is because they're simply aging. And if vision matters, then you augment it somehow. In my case, I'm hearing impaired, then you put something on their ears or you make it louder, right? But sometimes it's because the work changed or the technology changed, and now they're out of sync. They don't know how to do that, or customer requirements change or something like that. And then the work is, well, I actually learned this from Don Kirky And that is, he worked for an organization, and they would deploy teams, bring them in. They all had the same job title, but when they came together, they didn't do the same work. They didn't follow the same processes. So just because you're called something doesn't mean your work is the same. This is one that I can mention McDonald's. These are the procurement people. And I did this whole study, and one of the senior executives looked at it, he says, now I know why we pay some more than others. Well, some people, it's easy to buy things when you're buying from Boise or, or Peoria or whatever. It's another thing when you're buying from countries with 300% inflation rate, and you start out by negotiating the currency in which you're going to do business. So yet they all had the same job title, all had the same job description, but the skills required of that job were significantly different if you were buying stuff from developing nations versus the guy down the street that you've had business with for 72 years. So that's part of what this is about, what we're looking at in terms, what I'm trying to get to anyway, because my bias is competence depends on context.
Context is king. Context is everything.
Well, politics wins. Context is number two. Okay.
Well said. The thing that strikes me here too is all these questions are really important because quite often clients and the sponsoring organizations don't have answers to these questions. You can't assume that they're going to have good answers to all these questions. Quite often, people like us are the first folks to ask them. And sometimes they have answers to some of these questions and not others.
That's right. So what you're trying to find out is how sophisticated or knowledgeable your client is. Because if they don't know this, that means that's part of your work that's not in your statement of work, but you still have to do it. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Don. Go ahead.
No, not at all. I was gonna highlight your comment about you ask in several places whether it's different across groups or within groups or across people, and I think that's a critical question and because there's some critical assumptions. Two possibilities that come to mind. One of them is they're not the same, and that's okay because they shouldn't be.
That's right.
But the second one is they are supposed to be, they really should be the same. And then you have this wonderful opportunity to find the really good ones and model competency, model assessment on the really good ones and figure out what it is that's different about them. Is it their background? Is it a set of skills, a practice, a trick, whatever? So looking for those variations can be incredibly powerful.
Right.
Do you want to move on to the dynamics of performance?
Sure. This, gentlemen, I'm not real good at graphics, but this is one of my favorite pictures because it begins to show how when we talk about something being systemic, this is what systemic means. So when you look at the workplace, I want to know, well, right now we're all working virtually from home, right? So the workplace has changed. So the biggest issue now is that do you have the good chairs? By the way, the kitchen table and the kitchen chair don't work all day. So do you have the right equipment? Can you see? Are the kids legitimately in your home? It's their space too. I mean, do you have the quiet that you need or something like that? So you can look at the workplace, then you look at the work. I mean, is it still the same work? Or have we developed new technologies, developed new methodologies, or something like that? And then you have the workforce. Well, when you're young, your motives might be one thing, but as you are maturing and suddenly you're caring for parents and you've got kids in college, or you have a spouse that's ill, or something like that, well, suddenly their priorities change. It doesn't mean that they will be unproductive. It means you have to be accommodating to those particular situations. And then when you go outside of your own little world, that's when you look at infrastructure issues. Right now, one of the biggest challenges with COVID is the disruption of the supply chain. Manufacturers can't get pieces and parts, and they can't get there. So when you have natural disasters, whether they be fires or floods or whatever, can you move product? Are the rails open? Are the trucks, can they get through? Can the shipyards get, you know what I mean? We make assumptions about the stability and the capacity of the larger structures outside of us. Political unrest, okay? If you are, are there riots going on? So we have all of these things, and then of course you have your new competitors coming in that nobody paid attention to, and all of a sudden they're eating away at your customer base, and pretty soon you don't have a customer base. So it is looking at this, because this is all moving, and we have to help our clients understand those dynamics and how we are always in flux as we adapt.
This is a nice, different depiction of the overall system. And I like this because it's simpler and easier for me to understand. You know, there are things like Roger Kaufman's organizational elements model that presents this in table form. There are diagrams like Geary Rumler's anatomy of performance. What I like about this one is that it contains all of those systemic elements, but in a way that I find more understandable.
The other thing I'd add is Judy has avoided hard lines between anything, and that is in fact the reality.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, you want to go on and we'll talk about this a little bit more specifically. When I talk about that external marketplace, and we want people to be effective, there's some assumptions about it. Just like here, media. What's your relationship with the media, right? If the media takes you on, that's something you have to be aware of. For one of my clients, they were in a distribution center, and nobody liked them because their trucks were coming and going and espousing whatever they thought, you know, polluting and whatever, and something like that. And they were constantly having to look at community groups, city council, and things like that, telling their story about how they're working to be more environmentally sensitive and things like that. And then your market size. Some of us are only selling to the local community, some of us a large community, and some of us are global. And some of us are in such unique niches, we don't have a lot of competition. In other places, if you have a lot of people, you're almost down to, you have to have the lowest cost. It's a harder market. And now let's look at the customers, okay? How diverse are they? Do you just sell? I sell across all industries. I made a decision as a consultant not to focus eyes in finance or healthcare. So I do all of them, but some focus on a particular industry or something like that. And some of us, we have long-term histories. Well, I was in a relationship with McDonald's for over 10 years on the supply chain side, the airports for over 10 years. So I have long-term relationships, but I also have one-offs. I have clients come in, can you do something by Friday and analyze this data, tell them it's worth it, and they go on, okay? Are you growing or whatever? And your relations, do your customers consider you a necessary evil? Or as you talk to your clients, do their customers see them as an unnecessary evil? Right now, I think it has to be very hard to be in health insurance. You know, we have to have them, but boy, we hate them. You know, so what does that mean? So go to another picture, go to the next one to show that. So if your client, if this is the profile for your clients, go to the next one. That's a different thing. Now go to the next one. So one of the things, my mental model is that I try to draw this for me when I'm talking to my clients. I want to know where they are in terms of their external world. And so, and do they know? I mean, a lot of them are so out of touch with their customers They've just assumed they take the check on a regular basis. They're totally out of touch with them. And now they wonder why there's fewer checks. But they haven't really done any work. So this helps me a lot. You want to go to the next one? This is now looking on a lower level. Now we're looking at the workplace itself and the workforce and things like that. So I consider, when I look at the workforce, think about, are the people that you're working with, that team or that department or whatever it is, where are they? Are they a bunch of newbies? Or they've been in the business, you know, they've had this job for 37 plus years? Do they like each other? Or have they already got their political blocks and they're out throwing darts at each other? You know, I want to know something about that. That tells me about my approach, who I have to invite, some things I have to work on. Leadership. Some companies, I mean, they have drafts in the lobby. They're firing those leaders, I mean, or they're moving around. Some of them, the leaders are old guard and they too may be out of touch, right? But so I want to know, are they conflicting? I want to know something about them. Now, every company, every business has products and services they sell. All right, so are they selling one product? We had a great conversation the other day with a gentleman who's from a printing company. He said, we're in the dyeing industry. So what they're doing is investing in innovation. He said, we are reinventing ourselves, as we sit here. We're coming up ways of leveraging our skills, our technology, and building whole new product lines, right? So do you sell one thing? You sell tires, right? Or do you sell whole automobiles? Or do you sell automobile services? Or do you sell drivers? I mean, what are your products and services? Because this has a lot to do with the skill set. It has a lot to do with the systems to support it and how sophisticated they are. It has a lot to do with the skill sets needed to support it. So give me the next picture. So it's again, so I talked to that client and I'm trying to build this picture for myself. Go to the next one. Now go to the next one. So again, and these are movable for you. And sometimes you can discover this even before you get there. You can go to the website, you can find out what they do or something like that, what they claim. You can frequently get a financial report and you kind of see where they are. I mean, you can do a lot of discovery before you even get there. And that should better equip you to provide whatever skills, how you're going to approach them, how you're going to work with them, something like that.
If they're publicly traded, they will have posted information even on their strategy, on their customer profiles, how they're trending. I did want to call out your workforce question, Judy, because it reminds me of a time that I got hired to do a safety study, and really they just wanted me to go around and ask people, and I asked, one of the obvious questions is, well, you know, why don't you ask them? And they said, well, because we know that they're going to lie to us if we do that. So, you know, when you highlight the hostile relations, that's,
okay.
You know, that's so. I had to promise anonymity. The interview approach was completely different than you might have otherwise, simply because you knew that they inherently, because even though you were an outsider, they were unlikely to trust you, and they might not tell you the truth either.
Well, see, part of this is understanding clients reveal more in the beginning than they do later, because they don't think of you as being inquisitive. But how they first answer the questions on the phone call or how they answer them, whatever, are very revealing. So when I would go to a client site, I want to know, I pay attention to the signage. How easy is it for me to find where to park? I look at the condition of the curbs. I want to know if there's weeds out there. That tells me they take care of stuff, okay? I was at a hospital and I set my case down, and a few minutes later I saw a mouse get in this is a hospital, okay? They have some other problems, right?
They do.
So we have, and it was a fat mouse, okay? So was it Gus and Cinderella, the little fat one? Anyway, that's what it was. So when I go someplace and I set my purse down, they say, oh, be sure to take it with you. So they're worried about internal theft, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so people, if you'll just keep your eyes and ears open, you can learn a lot about the workplace and in culture and what's going on just by paying attention when you're in a meeting, who speaks and who doesn't. Okay, who they defer to. I was at a meeting. We had to start. I had to start at 8. Man, I was there at 5 of 8 in my seat, and they dawdled around and they dawdled around. 10 o'clock. This man walked in, and the lady sitting next to me, she says, "We can start now." Okay, yeah, I know who's calling shots in this puppy, and I don't care.
Exactly. I worked in a national security environment, and there the interesting rule is that I'm in a conference room, and you can't swing a dead cat without hitting some PhDs. But
right.
The only person in the room who was called doctor was the head federal official in charge.
Right.
Judy, out of curiosity, these techniques you've shared are things that you use early in projects and you consistently refine throughout a project to understand the project space. Are these also things that get shared with clients in needs assessment reports or appendices for reports? Are you running these things back by clients for their review?
Confirmation?
Yeah, and confirmation.
It really depends upon what my deliverable is.
Mm-hmm.
If my deliverable is, in fact, they want a report that they can share with senior management, whatever, something like that, I can, in fact, share this and highlight the findings and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it's driven by the deliverable.
Okay.
Some of it's because so much of my work is around credentialing.
Sure.
So I sometimes, this is just for me.
Yes. So
I know where I have to wear armed guards and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A good question, because I was thinking about how open a client would be to your conclusion that their environment was toxic. And that would have to be a very special relationship and a very and presented diplomatically. Well,
actually, I have shared this with one client. I told you the guy where somebody came and committed suicide. It was very, very volatile. I went to the president, and he was sitting there with his board, and I said, "Who's the asshole?" They set the tenure. You understand?
Yeah.
Right. And they knew exactly who I was talking about. But he ended up going to prison, so that was a unique situation. But my point is, what you share depends upon what your deliverable is, what your contract is, and certainly what is the relationship. Mm-hmm. If you are there doing a needs assessment or something, and you can't be honest that there's conflict, are we really serving them well? And
yes.
So
see, we have a luxury in that this is a graduate level course, and we work with our students to qualify the projects. And because we want a safe and authentic learning environment, things that involve high levels of politics or things that wouldn't be safe, those kinds of advanced context.
You wouldn't do this with them. No.
No, it would be cruel.
That would be cruel and unnecessary. But I've been in business for 46 years, so I'm a little different.
You have
so
I don't
qualify, I don't meet their profile anymore. but I also have a reputation as cutting to the chase and being straight and whatever. And that particular client that brought me in knew my reputation. They wanted somebody to call it out. And by the way, I have written in that they could fire me at any time without cause. I don't get fired, but well, that's not true. McDonald's fired me every month over those 10 years, only to hire me back the next day. But that was a different situation. We had a very good working relationship. So.
Clearly, a 10-year relationship in the consulting business is pretty good.
Yeah. So what else can I help you with, gentlemen?
Well, at this point, we want to thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us and sharing these models with us. As always, it's delightful to talk with you and delightful to hear what you've been doing.
It is wonderful to see you, Judy. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been my pleasure to be with you, and I wish all your students the very best.
Thank you.
We do too.
Yes, we do. As always, we'll be posting this video shortly. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the questions area of your Blackboard shell. And as always, we'll see you online. Bye now.
Have a great day.